Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Bhaja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Bhaja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Yasevato Jayamudire Nastapayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 10, verse 7 and 8. I'll just do the Sanskrit for 10.7 and the translation, and then we'll chant 10.8, because that's the one that has the purport. Shri Vishu Vacha Dharmam Vashotu Kamena Yuyame Pratyudarataha Eshava Priyam Atmanam Tyajantam Sanchajamyaham. The great sage Dadichi said, "Just to hear from you about religious principles, I refuse to offer my body at your request. Now, although my body is extremely dear to me, I must give it up for your better purposes, since I know that it will leave me today or tomorrow." So now we'll do this in call and response. Yodruvenatmana nata na dharmam na yashaha puman Iheta Bhuttadayaya Sasochahastavareerapi. Anyone want to chant? Nadamam Nayashaha Puman Iheta Bhuttadayaya Sasochahastavareerapi. Yodruvanatmananata Nadamam Nayashaha Puman Iheta Bhuttadayaya Sasochahastavareerapi. Yodruvanatmananata Nadamam Nayashaha Puman Iheta Bhuttadayaya Sasochahastavareerapi. Yaha, anyone who adruvena, impermanent, atmana, by the body, nataha, O lords, na, not, dharmam, religious principles, na, not, yashaha, fame, puman, a person, iheta, endeavors for, bhuttadayaya, by mercy for the living beings, saha, that person, sochaha, pitiable, stavarahai, by the immovable creatures, api, even. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O demigods, one who has no compassion for humanity and its suffering, and does not sacrifice his impermanent body for the higher causes of religious principles or eternal glory, is certainly pitied even by the immovable beings. Purport. In this regard, a very exalted example was set by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Concerning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.34, Tyaktva sudaschaya shurepshita rajya lakshmim dharmishta arya vachasa yad agad aryanyam Maya mrigam dayeta yepshitam anvadavad vande mahapurusha te charanadavindam. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord, upon whom one should always meditate. He left his householder life, leaving aside his eternal consort, whom even the denizens of heaven adore. He went into the forest to deliver the fallen souls, who are put into illusion by material energy. To accept sannyas means to commit civil suicide, but sannyas is compulsory, at least for every brahmana, every first-class human being. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a very young and beautiful wife and a very affectionate mother. Indeed, the affectionate dealings of his family members were so pleasing that even the demigods could not expect such happiness at home. Nevertheless, for the deliverance of all the fallen souls of the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and left home when he was only 24 years old. He lived a very strict life as a sannyas, refusing all bodily comforts. Similarly, his disciples, the 6 Goswamis, were ministers who held exalted positions in society, but they also left everything to join the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srinivasacharya says, Tyaktva turnam ashesha mandala pati shrenim sada tuchavat bhutva dina ganasha kau karunaya kaupina kantashrita. These Goswamis left their very comfortable lives as ministers, zamindars, and learned scholars and joined Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement just to show mercy to the fallen souls of the world, Dina Ganeshakau Karunaya, accepting very humble lives as mendicants, wearing no more than loincloths and torn quilts, kopin kanta. They lived in Vrindavan and followed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order to excavate Vrindavan's lost glories. Similarly, everyone else with a materially comfortable condition in this world should join the Krishna consciousness movement to elevate the fallen souls. The words Bhuttadayaya, Maya Mrigam Dayita Yepshitam, and Dina Ganeshakau Karunaya all convey the same sense. These are very significant words for those interested in elevating human society to a proper understanding of life. One should join the Krishna consciousness movement, following the examples of such great personalities as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis, and before them, the great sage Didichi. Instead of wasting one's life for temporary bodily comforts, one should always be prepared to give up one's life for better causes. After all, the body will be destroyed. Therefore, one should sacrifice it for the glory of distributing religious principles throughout the world. Om Agyan Timirandasya Jananjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vancha Kalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachare Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you all so much for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class. I want to apologize. We had such a festival of hearing over the last number of days. Madhavananda Prabhu, Vaisheshika Prabhu, so many exalted devotees. So I'm kind of breaking that streak. But it is Bhagavatam, so may the festival continue. And I first humbly beg blessings from all the assembled devotees, especially senior devotees, Arjuna Prabhu, Ladini Shakti Prabhu, Adi Purusha Prabhu, and each and every single one of you who are my teachers and my seniors. In that mood, I can't really pretend to deeply understand these 2 verses because I think that they're very, very, very deep. But I pray to each and every one of you and to Guru Maharaj and all of the acharyas that whatever I say is in line with parampara and also enlivening and of benefit to you. I can just share what I'm processing from this text and then open it up for discussion. So Prabhupada says in the purport that we should follow the examples of such great personalities as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the six Goswamis, and before them the great sage Didichi. And in 10.7, Didichi is saying to the demigods that he is ready to give up his body, although it is extremely dear to him, since he knows that it will leave him today or tomorrow, that ultimately it is temporary. So who is Didichi? You know, we hear so much about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the six Goswamis, but I don't know so much about Didichi. But I think that there's a couple points that are of great importance here. Back in 9.52, Prabhupada narrates a little story about Didichi. And it's not the first time that Didichi has had some serious bodily changes. In 9.52, Prabhupada narrates how Indra actually at one time threatened Didichi that he would cut off his head if he instructed the Ashvini Kumaras in spiritual science. But he had already promised the Ashvini Kumaras that he would do so, so he couldn't break his promise. So they had a plan. The Ashvini Kumaras actually first cut off his head and replaced his head with the head of a horse. And then he instructed them spiritual science through the head of a horse. So then when Indra came and cut his head off, they then replaced his head back with his original head. And then what is... so it all worked out, you know. So what is interesting also is that even after his history of having his head cut off by having his head cut off by Indra, who is it who's now approaching him and asking him to give his body? Does anyone know? It's Indra, isn't it? It's Indra and the demigods. So that same person who had before cut off his head is now asking him, please give your body for the benefit of us. In accordance, of course, with the order of Lord Vishnu. In one of the translations, it's they're asking, please give us your body for our benefit in accordance with the order of Lord Vishnu. And Didichi at once partially agrees. So in his heart and in his mind, he totally agrees like that. But outwardly, he asked them a few questions first. Why? Just to hear religious instructions from them. And in 10.2, it says, he smiled and jokingly spoke as follows. So what was his immediate reaction when they asked for his body? He smiled and cracked jokes. So if someone asked us, please give us your body, what would be our emotional response? Even if outwardly we might be, you know, what would be happening inside? Would we have fear? If we see a snake, if we see a snake and it's like a real snake, it's like a real poisonous snake, what's our reaction? Yeah, or a tiger or whatever. We have to ask ourselves honestly, like, how would we feel? He's cracking jokes. So it's pretty inconceivable. But it's not something that he is forcing himself to do, although totally scared inside. He is completely at ease, fear-free, and happy. And why is this? It's because he's a devotee. In verse 10.11, Sukadev Goswami will say, Didichi Muni, the son of Atarva, thus resolved to give his body to the service of the demigods. He placed himself, the spirit soul, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this way gave up his gross material body made of 5 elements. And in the purport to 10.12, Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 8.5. Whoever, at the time of death, quits his body remembering me at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So what is Didichi Muni's destination? He's going back home, back to Godhead. He's going back to the spiritual world. So Krishna declares to Arjuna, he says, declare it boldly, my devotee will never perish. So his body might be going as charity, but what is happening to his eternal soul? He's going back home to be with Krishna eternally. So he is joking, he is happy, he is celebrating. Then Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the role of a devotee, he had the most wonderful mother, the most wonderful wife, his eternal consort, and he left them at the age of 24 to take sannyas for the purpose of delivering the fallen souls. The 6 Goswamis, they were ministers holding exalted positions in society, but they left everything to join Sri Chaitanya's movement. Why? Just to show mercy to the fallen souls. They went to Vrindavan under Lord Chaitanya's order to excavate Vrindavan's lost glories. And then we have these contemporary examples. Of course, Srila Prabhupada, after meditating on his spiritual master's instruction for so many years and preparing, he left his family, eventually took sannyas, and then did the opposite thing from the 6 Goswamis. Under the order of his spiritual master, he left Vrindavan. Why? Just to come bring Krishna consciousness to all of us. I can't help but think of what Radhanath Maharaj was sharing at the one-day retreat on Mother's Day. He broke his mother's heart by leaving home and making the sole purpose of his life his search for God. And then when he did come to Vrindavan and found Krishna, in his heart he yearned for nothing more than to live in Vrindavan his whole life. But when his visa ran out, what happened? He had to come back to America. And while listening to Prabhupada's lectures, he realized that he could please Srila Prabhupada more, not by having any desires for his own spiritual absorption in Vrindavan, but to stay in America and to serve Prabhupada's mission. Which is what? To give Krishna consciousness to humanity at large. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he saw the suffering of humanity. He saw the suffering of devotees. And he prayed to take on all of that suffering and suffer himself so that others could be relieved of their suffering and go back to Godhead. Then he got cancer. Joyfully. And there's that beautiful story of close to death, meditating on Krishna's holy names, even though his body was completely emaciated and he was shaking from physical pain. Radhanath Swami was there with him, holding his hand and chanting, and his face lit up, and he said, "It doesn't get any better than this." And then he was like, we're there. And Radhanath Swami is like, we're where? And he's like, we're there. Krishna has made a house for us. Can't you see? We're there. He was there in the spiritual world already. And then, of course, he said, Radhanath Swami, come with me. There's a spot for you on our chariot. And Radhanath Maharaj was like, not my time. So we're all very, 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 very lucky that it was not his time. But who are these personalities? The last example, contemporary example, Hladini Devi Dasi, Prabhupada disciple. She was in Africa preaching. When the group of devotees she was with and herself were caught by the dictator and lined up on the beach to be shot to death, the dictator said the ladies could go. But Hladini could not see other devotees killed. She stormed at the dictator knowing she would be shot herself and was killed. So Prabhupada says we should follow in their footsteps. Instead of wasting one's life for temporary bodily comforts, one should always be prepared to give up one's life for better causes. So how do we do this? This is the question. How does this relate to us today? I pretty much always feel, and I don't know, maybe you all can or cannot relate, but I'm living here at Bhakti Center. My spiritual master and the devotees have given me shelter. I'm being given a place to stay and prasadam to eat and so many things. And what am I giving? I'm just taking. Shouldn't I be giving more? When I hear of such stories of sacrifice of devotees and Bhakti Tirtha Swami praying to take on all of the suffering of devotees before he got cancer, and we think, at least I sometimes think, why take care of my body? Shouldn't I just push harder in Krishna consciousness and give up everything until we just like completely collapse? Fortunately, and I say fortunately because Krishna does not make mistakes. And every situation in life we find ourselves in is the perfect situation for us to advance in our Krishna consciousness. Most of us are not in a situation where our spiritual master is asking us to give up our physical lives right now. Haribo. But we are being asked to give our mind, bodies, words, actions, and very lives to the Krishna consciousness movement. So George Harrison wanted to shave his head and move into the ashram. He asked Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, "You stay a Beatle and make music for Krishna." Bhaktivinoda Thakur was in the Grahastha ashram and raised 10 children in Krishna consciousness. He saw his home as Vaikuntha and his service to his family Vaishnava Seva. Many ladies, maybe who very much wanted to live a renounced life, completely devoted to God, have been asked to get married and serve their husbands and children. And like the Brahmins' wives in Krishna's pastimes, who were so enthusiastic to feed him, have achieved love for Krishna, cooking and feeding Krishna and devotees. Bhakti Tirtha Swami says that to be selfless is not to think less of ourselves, but to think of ourselves less. To shift our thinking from ourselves and our own lives being at the center of the universe, to meditating on others and how we can serve them. To not just praying for ourselves and our own Krishna consciousness, but praying for others. To come to a place of forgetting how to live for ourselves because we have learned to live for others. To come to a place of forgetting how to live for ourselves because we have learned to live for others. The key is to develop compassion for humanity and its suffering. We cannot be ready to sacrifice our lives unless we really develop that. And how does compassion for all manifest? It is a natural byproduct of love for God. They go hand in hand. Prabhupada said in 10.6 that at the present moment the entire world is in a dangerous position under the spell of a godless civilization. Why? Because they do not have Krishna. That is the only suffering. Ramananda Rai says that the only suffering is not being an association of devotees. So what can we do to serve others? We can give them the association of devotees. And to give them the association of devotees, we also have to be devotees and have an association of devotees. What did Prabhupada ask for us? Accept this Krishna consciousness and give it to others. So it all depends on our consciousness. It all depends on the situation, case by case scenario. And it depends on what we are being asked to do. This is why we need the spiritual master and seniors in our life who can guide us and give us instruction on how we can best serve them. The question is, are we ready and willing to do what they say? Whether it to be to give everything away, or whether it to be to have material possessions to serve Krishna, whether it to be renunciates or to have families, whether it to be to give up our bodies or take care of our health, have friends and be balanced so we can have a long, healthy life serving Krishna. Rukmini Walker was joking with me, and one time she said, "Oh Krishna, I surrender everything to you. Just not Pennsylvania. I don't want to move to Pennsylvania." So this happens in our lives every day. We're like, "Oh, I'm so surrendered, whatever you want." And then someone is like, "Prabhu, can you take the trash out?" So like these small ways like moment to moment, day to day, like right now in our lives, what can we do? And I always think of one example when Bhakti Tirtha Swami was distributing so many books, and there's that famous story of Srila Prabhupada being so happy with him. And it's such a glorious service distributing books. But he had the experience where he was so enthusiastic, and he actually then found out that the devotees that he was serving with were becoming discouraged because they couldn't keep up with him. And that broke his heart. And he had this realization that for him at that time in his life, what was more important for him than to break so many records and distribute so many books was actually community development and relationships with devotees. And the question is, whatever we are doing, why are we doing it? Are we meditating on others? Are we detached from what we are doing? Are we really doing it for service, basically? And are there any subtle attachments? Do we get anything out of it, whether it's prestige or fame or some kind of sense gratification or recognition or whatever it might be, or feeling part of the group and people love us or whatever it might be? I personally struggle with this dilemma every single day. I'll give you one example from my own personal life. I have been instructed to take care of my health, and I'm trying to do that. And at the same time, if I'm meditating on my body and my body's comfort, is that taking care of my health, or is that just bodily consciousness? And it can turn into a lack of enthusiasm and not being absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And what do I need to do to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness and taking the next step in my service while still following that instruction? So we all have different things in our lives, and it's all different things for each and every one of us. But we always need to be asking, what do I need to change to take that next step in surrender, and what attachments are there? On Sunday at the retreat, someone asked Maharaj a brilliant question about how to find the most direct path for how we can serve in our life, and what we can do to serve. And Maharaj answered in one word. Does anyone remember what that word? Yeah, kirtan. Kirtan. Yeah. So we have to take shelter of the process sincerely. I'm in Rasanath and Vrindavan Vinodi's community group, and Rasanath said that he divides his day into 3 categories, so that every moment he is doing one of 3 things: Namaruchi, Vaishnav Seva, and Jivadoya. And when I first moved here, I asked Vaisheshika Prabhu if he had any advice for me for how I can serve here. And he said, chant good japa, chant your rounds really nicely, be eager to serve and help the devotees in their service, and have the 6 loving exchanges. So we just have to take shelter of the process, and then everything will be okay. We have nothing to worry about, because all will be revealed in time. Hare Krishna. Does anyone have any comments, corrections, complaints, or questions? Yes, Prabhu. Bhakti Tirtha, please. Sorry. Bhakti Tirtha Swami says, die to live. And Rana Swami always quotes, who is it? Martin Luther King, if we don't have something we're willing to die for, we're not really living. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yeah. Yeah, it's an awesome question. I have a few thoughts. The first thing that comes to mind is when Prabhupada first met his spiritual master and said that, well, don't we need to gain independence before we can spread Krishna consciousness and people take this seriously? And his Guru Maharaj completely crushed this idea. He said, no, the immediate thing that we need to do is Krishna consciousness. There will always be changing political climates and changing things in this material world. That's the nature of the material world. But that ultimately we need to give people Krishna consciousness. So chanting Hare Krishna, being the change that we want to see in the world, as Gandhi says. You know, I used to, when I was younger, I used to have ideas that, yeah, I want to change the world. You know, I want to, become somebody that I can help change the world, make the world a better place. But my personal realization since coming to Krishna consciousness is that we need to take shelter of the process and change ourselves first. And what can we do in our immediate relationships, in our families, in our friendships, in the circle of devotees? Every single day, the loving exchanges that we are having, those that can create such a vibration that can then change the whole world. And another story that comes to mind is when Gary and Radhanath Swami, after so many years apart, they came back together. And Gary, he had become a professional bodybuilder. And he was teaching people how to take care of their bodies. And Radhanath Swami is, he's a sannyasi. And Gary's like, what do we have in common? How can we even be friends anymore? And Radhanath Swami had to think about that for a second. And then he said, we can be a team. You teach people how to take care of their bodies. And I'll teach them how to take care of their soul. and we can come together as a team to help people. So I feel like it's like that with these different political or green movements or vegan movements or whatever these things are, people wanting to take action, what's seen more as action in the world, corrective action. We can pair with them. We can be a team, teaching them that ultimately, even if we get a cure for cancer or AIDS, there's going to be another disease. Even if we, save whatever, something else is going to come in this material world. But what is the real urgency? Is our soul and connecting with Krishna and never having to suffer the threefold miseries of material life: birth, death, disease, old age. If we can really give people that, then we can work together as a team. I think it's about balanced consciousness, not getting so caught up in it that we lose what we really have to offer, but then at the same time not being like fanatical that no, just only chanting Hare Krishna, but that, being green or whatever isn't important. Or ahimsa, dairy products and cow protection and these things that ultimately Vedic culture also addresses aren't important. How can we be an example? And I think that this topic of compassion, compassion is supposed to be a humbling emotion. So if by our so-called compassion and, on social media, it extending all over the world, if that's puffing us up and making us feel important or better than others, it's not actually compassion. Real compassion is a very humbling emotion where we actually feel gratitude towards Krishna and deep, deep, deep love and concern for others. And I want to get to your question. Just one last thought on that is I had an experience in my personal life, because one time someone asked Radha Swami, if we're actually thinking of all the suffering of people in the world, like, shouldn't we be depressed all the time? And his answer was, actually, it's the opposite. That if we're actually feeling Krishna's love and we're actually feeling compassion for others, that's actually a deep spiritual ecstasy. And my father has Parkinson's disease, and I love my father very, very deeply. He was a wonderful father to me. And I remember before joining Krishna consciousness that when I would think of his suffering, it would bring me great, like, material, emotional pain. And one time, sometime after being in Krishna consciousness, I was speaking to my father, and he was telling me about, what he was going through. And it was actually like one of the deepest spiritual experiences of my life, where it was like a deep feeling and love for him, but it was like a deep ecstasy. And I realized in that moment that, like, this is actually real compassion, where why was I feeling that? Because I had such conviction that Krishna is taking care of his soul. Does that? Yes, Prabhu? Yeah, that's such a beautiful point. Thank you so much. Mother Teresa says that the real hunger of the world isn't the hunger of the belly, but the hunger of the heart. And I think of, people like devotees like Radhana Swami, Adi Purusha Prabhu, who are feeding people, taking care of the body, but then also it's spiritual food and connecting to them. Bhaktivedanta Hospital, Barsana Eye Camp, Food for Life program. Devotees do have beautiful programs where they are taking care of people's minds, body, heart, and ultimately soul. So it's giving the person that love and the hunger that their belly needs, but then also at the same time giving them the opportunity to see Lord Nrsingadev when they're going in for their surgery at Bhaktivedanta Hospital or whatever it might be. So these, devotees, we can do things like this. That's not only a wonderful way to care for a person and to show that person love, but to also spread Krishna consciousness and change the way that people view the Hare Krishna community, and I think, okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Govinda, Adi Purusha. संत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज वृंदावन धाम की जय। श्री नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, तुलसी महारानी की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to thee, Son of the Glories. All glories to the Son of the Glories. All glories to Shri Shri Guru, Shri Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada.
He's usually a Harinam. We live with a Harinam. It's not far. It's like 5-6 blocks. But he usually comes to the morning program. I don't have his number. Do you have?
No, I have his number. I can give him.
You have his number.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I've been going for the Sankirtan today.
Oh yeah. He's there. He's there.
I'll meet him there.
Yeah. But he doesn't stay here. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare.
I have seen Florida last month, and I'm still working in the old hospital. So by August, completely closed. Yeah, I unexpectedly had a report about a period off. So then I thought I should do something because my wife did that work. So what else I can do? I don't want to be that I connected with the just feel like a person gets an absorb something from here and go back. That's what it is. Usually afternoon I want to go for one day program. Probably go to